From the Fox Studios in New York City, this is Maria Bartiromo's Wall Street.
And happy weekend to all. Welcome to the program that analyzes the week that was and helps position you for the week ahead. I'm Maria Bartiromo. Wall Street and the world waiting for what could be a monumental week.
I have a great relationship with President Xi. I expect to be able to make a good deal with him, and I want him to make a good deal for China, but it's got to be fair. For years, they were making $500, $600, $700 billion, $700 billion, and we'd be making nothing. It was a one-sided. Honestly, we built their military. We built China's military with the money that we lost for so many years getting ripped off. So now we're going to have a fair deal. I think we're going to have a very successful meeting.
President Trump is headed to Asia this weekend, gearing up for a high-stakes summit with China's President Xi Jinping. That happens on Thursday in South Korea. The president will also visit Malaysia and Japan. And the meeting is just ahead of the deadline for new 100% tariffs on all Chinese imports beginning November 1st. They are stacking tariffs, meaning the tariff will be 157% on China. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Trade Representative Jamieson Greer already in Malaysia this weekend, looking to restart the trade talks with their Chinese counterparts. Joining me now, getting ahead of it, is Senate Foreign Affairs member and former U.S. Ambassador to Japan, Bill Hagerty. Senator, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Likewise, Maria, it's great to be with you.
What are you expecting out of these China trade talks? Some people would like to see the U.S. decouple from China.
Well, it's a complicated relationship. I talked both with U.S. Trade Rep Jamieson Greer and with our Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent just a few days ago, just before they headed to Malaysia. We've got a great team there on the ground. They're going to be negotiating with the Chinese team. But I tell you, it's going to come together, Maria, when President Trump and President Xi are in the same room. I think that's the only way we're going to get this resolved. I've been with both men. I've been with both Xi and Trump together. There is a relationship of mutual respect, but that relationship was seriously damaged, Maria, when you look at what happened in the COVID pandemic cover-up, the spy balloon that they did during the Biden administration. The relationship is frayed, and now the critical earth minerals and magnets blockade that we've seen, this has got to come to an end. President Trump has demonstrated he means business. The stacking tariffs, 157%, that is a critical issue. It's basically going to say, I think it basically says to the Chinese side, you got to come to the table. We're going to have to break this logjam. We're going to have to come to terms. And I think with President Trump and President Xi in the room, that's perhaps the only way this is going to happen.
Yeah, I think you make a great point. We'll likely see the conversation revolve around those rare earth magnets, fentanyl, soybeans, Taiwan, AI chips, port fees, student visas, a lot for President Trump to get into with Xi Jinping. Of course, we'll be previewing that all week. And what do you make of the president ending all trade negotiations with Canada this week after Ontario aired an anti-tariff ad featuring Ronald Reagan? The Reagan Foundation said that it misrepresented the former president. And President Trump says this was meant to interfere with the upcoming Supreme Court decision on his tariffs. That hearing, of course, November 5th.
Yeah, Canada has been a very difficult trading partner for years, Maria. I just met with Brown-Forman, the owners of Jack Daniels, one of the premier products from my home state of Tennessee. The Canadians have blocked all whiskey sales in Canada, taken them all off the shelf. This is the way they play. They don't play fair. What President Trump wants is fair and reciprocal trade. They hearken back to some free trade dogma, but it's never been free trade with Canada. It's always been lopsided. President Trump is trying to fix it, and they've decided to take to the airwaves and actually tamper with the American public's perception. And also at a time when a critical case is before the Supreme Court. I don't blame President Trump for being quite upset with this. I hope it comes to a resolution. Canada is an important strategic partner for us, but they need to come to the table.
Do you believe that this Supreme Court decision will go President Trump's way? It's going to be important on a number of levels.
So I've talked with several experts, and I do believe that it will go the president's way. They certainly think that it will. And frankly, Maria, it's critical for our national prosperity that it do so. At the end of the day, the Supreme Court, I think, will make the right decision, and I think we'll be continuing forward on this. And any country that's holding out, hoping that they're going to get some break from the Supreme Court here, I think that's folly. We need to get these deals done. We need to rearrange the unbalanced relationships that date all the way back to World War II, and we need to see a much more fair and reciprocal trading environment for American goods.
Meanwhile, I can't imagine that the government shutdown doesn't go into November, given the fact that the president is going to Asia Doesn't Congress need the president here to actually move the needle here on the government shutdown? Federal workers have just missed their first paycheck. On Thursday, Senate Democrats blocked a Republican measure that would have paid federal employees, members of the military, contractors working during now what is the second longest shutdown in American history. Senator, what do you make of it, and what are your expectations?
I think it's absolutely disgraceful. My colleague Ron Johnson from Wisconsin put forward a simple piece of legislation that said, look, let's at least pay those people that have been deemed essential. They have to continue to work. Our military, our law enforcement, the people that keep our planes in the air. You think about all the folks that are stepping up, the ones that look after our nuclear arsenal. The Democrats refused even to pay them. They voted against that. This is nothing but political theater, and they continue to put Chuck Schumer's primary in New York ahead of the needs of the American public, and certainly ahead of the needs of those who are actually serving America, dutifully and loyally, patriotically, without pay. I think it's an absolute disgrace, and I think President Trump is looking at this and he sees it's nothing but political theater. Logic is not working with Chuck Schumer and his team. I don't know when they're going to come to the table, but at some point they're going to have to.
Wow. Well, meanwhile, former special counsel Jack Smith is defending his 2023 decision to subpoena the phone records of 8 Republican senators, including yourself, during his January 6th investigation. That allowed him to obtain data on when the senators were making calls and to whom. We're now learning that Merrick Garland, Lisa Monaco, and Christopher Wray all signed off on this investigation. Smith says the move was entirely proper and consistent with Justice Department policy. Now, you were one of those senators that you were spied on. How do you respond?
Yeah.
Have you gotten any new information about this, Senator?
Well, the notion that it's proper is absolutely ridiculous. The one thing that we all have in common is that we're all Republicans. And the other thing that was happening at the time was the biggest case of legal weaponization, politicization of the Justice Department and the FBI that we've ever seen. Everybody knew what Jack Smith was up to. And at the time that our records were requested, any sentient being would have known that this was a political witch hunt that was going on. What happens? My carrier, Verizon, hands over my records. What does AT&T do? When Senator Cruz's records are sought, they say no. I asked myself, why would Verizon have done this? Why would they have complied? I talked with legal experts in Washington. They said even if I were a drug dealer, Verizon would have at least notified me if they were turning my records over to the government. But they remained silent in their complicity. It turns out that the general counsel, I presume that is the person that would have been key in the decision. The general counsel there at Verizon was a staffer, a Democrat Hill staffer, before coming into the company. Democrat donors. I don't know what happens when you get companies like this playing this political game, but it reeks to high heavens. Their complicity in this is very disturbing. Sadly, I've been a Verizon customer for decades. I certainly wish I'd been an AT&T customer that might have actually stood up for my rights and protected me the way Senator Cruz was protected by AT&T. Instead, my records were turned over when I reached out to the leadership there, the CEO and the general counsel at Verizon. I don't even get a call back from the customer service department, Maria.
Wow.
They have some low-level person in the government affairs shop just tell me to talk to the hand, and this is not over. We're going to get to the bottom of this.
Well, that's unbelievable. We called Verizon, and they said, look, we have to respond to subpoenas. But it's very interesting that you found out that Verizon gave it up, your information they gave up, but AT&T did not. AT&T said, no, people have rights, and we can't do that. Really fascinating there. Senator, before you go, real quick on the president's trip to Asia, one of his visits is going to be with the prime minister, the new prime minister of Japan. You are the former ambassador there. Do you believe that she can be a strong partner for President Trump to push back against China's aggression?
I absolutely do. She's a protege of the late Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who was a good friend of President Trump's, a very good friend of mine. I just met with the incoming Prime Minister, Takechi's son, just last week. I think she's very, very anxious about moving forward with our relationship. She wants to see it as strong as possible from an economic standpoint, certainly, but also from a national defense standpoint, Maria. And our posture there in the region is absolutely critical. It's a very dangerous neighborhood where Japan finds itself. You think about North Korea, Russia, and China right at your doorstep. She is looking forward to strengthening the relationship. I think that she and President Trump will get along very well.
Senator, always a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Likewise, Maria. Thank you.